Well, good afternoon and welcome to the I-285, I-20 West Interchange Public Information Open House Live Q&A event. I'm Matthew Fowler with the Georgia Department of Transportation's Office of Innovative Delivery and am the program manager responsible for the project. For a little bit of background, I'll touch briefly on the Major Mobility Investment Program, of which this project is one. The Major Mobility Investment Program includes 18 projects across the state of Georgia, one of which is the crucial link at I-285 and I-20 on the west side of town, which we'll talk about tonight. Some other key locations include the 285-20 West Interchange on the east side of town, a series of express lanes, a series of bridge replacements, a commercial vehicle lane project south of town between Henry County and north of Macon, a couple projects in Savannah to support mobility in and out of the port. And we're proud to say that presently we have 3 projects underway: the widening of I-85 in North Gwinnett up through Brazelton, the widening of I-16 down in Savannah between I-95 and I-516, and the reconstruction of the I-16 I-95 interchange. Over the past several years, since we began the Major Mobility Investment Program in 2016, we've made a lot of great progress, including some work on the top end of 285 with express lanes and pursuing the one federal decision process, which is a streamlined environmental approach, securing a federal grant for State Route 400, extensive agency coordination, and in 2018, we broke ground on the first of the projects, the I-85 widening north of Gwinnett. We've had extensive and robust outreach through the industry and the public, with over 300 meetings held to date. And in 2019, we broke out several smaller scale projects as early deliverables, which we're calling advanced improvement projects. This year, the construction began on the I-16 I-95 interchange project and the widening of I-16, along with completion of the I-85 widening in North Gwinnett into Jackson County. Focusing specifically on the 285 and 20 West interchange in Fulton County and stretching further to the west, we'll touch quickly on the life of a project. Step 1 includes the project and initiation phase, where we develop the initial scope and develop a rough schedule and cost estimate. Presently, we're in the project development phase, which involves concept and design development, producing a concept report, conducting the public information open house meetings, which we're holding tonight and this Thursday, acquiring early right-of-way where appropriate, receiving the environmental approval, conducting the public hearing open house meetings, which will occur in roughly a year from now, and beginning the procurement of the developer team. Subsequent stages include the final design and construction, operating the facility, and long-term maintenance. So, in our project development findings, we've been in the initial concept and design stage. Several concepts were developed and have been analyzed to address the needs of the corridor, taking into account environmental and right-of-way impacts and minimizing those where possible. A concept team meeting was held in the past summer to present and receive comments from local jurisdictions and from technical staff. We've also been conducting traffic analysis to forecast traffic for the year 2026, when the project would reach substantial completion, and 2046, 20 years beyond that date. The average traffic entering the West Interchange is predicted to increase substantially, including an increase in truck traffic. The single lane ramps, left-hand exits are an existing challenge that we are focusing on remedying with this project. Some additional project development and findings include some work on the environmental approval process. Environmental recess report resource reports have been developed for history, archaeological, and ecological resources to identify potential locations within the corridor. We've also identified historic residential and industrial districts, multiple streams and wetlands. An underwater archaeological survey was completed at the Chattahoochee River crossing. And the next step in the process is the evaluation of additional environmental resources and advancement of the environmental assessment of effects. The proposed concept and next steps include, as you see located on the map here, stretching from beyond the interchange itself, from roughly near Thornton Road, State Route 6 on the west, to Hamilton E. Holmes Drive on the east, and on 285 in the south from Martin Luther King Jr. Drive, north to Donnelly Hollowell Parkway. In these locations, we're focusing on removing the left-hand exits from the interchange, improvements to the geometric design and the vertical grades of the roadway, construction of a westbound collector-distributor roadway from 285 along 20 to west of, just past Fulton Industrial Boulevard, and looking at locations where we will replace existing one-lane ramps with 2 lanes within the interchange. We also have the addition of auxiliary lanes along I-20 from just east of Thornton Road down to Hamilton E. Holmes Drive for a distance of roughly 8 miles. Additional lanes along I-285 from Donnelly Hollowell down to MLK Jr. Drive. Modification or replacement of numerous bridges and ramps at the interchange. Identification and design of structural retaining walls in coordination with major utilities in the corridor, such as Georgia Power and Colonial Pipeline. We're also continuing our identification of right-of-way needs. As part of the environmental process that we are in right now, GDOT is responsible for reviewing projects and filing appropriate documentation to ensure that all projects comply with applicable federal laws and regulations. Ensuring that project impacts on these resources is minimal can make for a potentially lengthy process. GDOT's Office of Environmental Services, including cultural resources, ecology, air quality, and traffic noise analysis, and NEPA specialists continue to develop new and streamlined processes. The environmental and design teams and other subject matter experts meet extensively during the design phase of a project to coordinate the best design options to avoid, minimize, or mitigate impacts to these resources. I hope you've been on our virtual public information open house site already, as public participation is an integral part of the transportation process, which helps ensure that decisions are made in consideration of and to benefit public needs and preferences. This brings GDOT closer to the public's vision of ideal transportation in Georgia. We have various opportunities to submit comments. And here you see on the screen is the website, the email, the address, and the phone number for where you can submit comments. The official comment period for the public information open house is open until October 8th. However, we will respond to any comments and questions that we receive throughout the life of the project. We will now switch over and watch a brief video of a visualization of the corridor with the proposed improvements as presently identified. Please wait one moment while we swap screens. Interchange project. This project is part of Georgia DOT's Major Mobility Investment Program designed to reduce congestion, increase safety, and improve operational and geometric deficiencies within the interchange. The project stretches 6 miles on I-20 from Thornton Road to Hamilton E. Holmes Drive. On I-285, it begins just south of the Martin Luther King Jr. Drive interchange and stretches 2.4 miles north to near the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway interchange. This visualization provides an aerial view of the proposed improvements. The project begins with the addition of a new I-20 eastbound lane near Factory Shoals Road to Six Flags Parkway for approximately 2 miles, with an additional lane continuing to the interchange. A 4-lane collector-distributor CD system is proposed on I-20 between the I-285 at I-20 West interchange and Fulton Industrial Boulevard in the westbound direction only, which is to the left of your screen. Next, the bridge over MLK Jr. Drive will be reconstructed to accommodate future traffic volumes. Further east, the Fairburn Road Bridge over the interstate will also be replaced and updated to include sidewalks. This aerial view of the interchange shows the reconstruction of the ramps northbound and southbound to I-285 and the connections from I-285 going eastbound and westbound on I-20. Within the interchange, all 3 left-hand exits will be removed and replaced with right-hand exits. Several single-lane ramps will be replaced with 2-lane ramps. The single-lane loop ramp from I-20 east to I-285 north will be removed and replaced with a 2-lane direct flyover. This visualization continues through the interchange on I-20 to the eastern end of the project at Hamilton E. Holmes Drive. Next, we turn north on I-285, beginning at MLK Jr. Drive, the southern end of the project. To improve traffic flow, the project will separate the traffic exiting from I-285 southbound to Fulton Industrial Boulevard, I-20, and MLK using a braided ramp. The geometry of the I-285 southbound I-20 westbound ramp will be improved to accommodate a 45-mile-per-hour design speed instead of the current 35-mile-per-hour design speed. On southbound I-285, the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway interchange ramp will become an auxiliary lane, widening I-285 southbound from the existing 4 to 5 lanes. The visualization goes through the interchange and concludes at the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway interchange on I-285, the most northern end of the project. Currently, the environmental studies have begun with identifying environmental attributes located within the corridor. The studies will identify and evaluate potential impacts to a wide variety of resources, such as streams, wetlands, protected species, historic and archaeological resources, air quality, noise, community impacts, and others. As part of the environmental process, public engagement will take place in various formats, including a virtual public information open house. Once the draft environmental assessment document is completed, it will be made available to the public for review of the complete environmental findings and any mitigation measures proposed at a future public hearing open house. Thank you for your interest in the I-285 at I-20 West Interchange project. For more information, visit our website at majormobility.gov. So thank you for your patience as we work through our technical difficulties. If you had any trouble viewing the video on the screen, please note that it is saved on the website and can be viewed at any time. We'll now transition to the question and answer portion of the virtual public information open house. This provides us an opportunity to learn more about the proposed improvements, ask questions, and provide feedback. You'll notice on the screen the rules for submitting the questions. Please submit your question using Zoom's question and answer feature. The chat feature is disabled. You'll be in listen-only mode and remain muted throughout the Q&A. The raise hand feature will be disabled as well. Please keep questions concise, project-specific, and appropriate. Bandwidth may impact your experience, so be sure to have strong Wi-Fi or a reliable wired connection. If you have a bad connection, please feel free to disconnect and rejoin. If your network fails or you have to leave, the event is being recorded and will be part of the official National Environmental Policy Act, NEPA, document, and will be posted to the website before October 8th. Closed captioning in Spanish and English is available by clicking on the gear on your screen. There is an audio option provided by dialing the number on your screen, along with the ID number and the passcode. If your question requires further research or a detailed technical response, we may respond as needed within 24 to 48 hours. The response will be added to the session recording as well. And please send any follow-up detailed contact information and questions to the email address on your screen. We will now transition to the Q&A portion of the meeting.
Our first question. Our first question is, when will this project begin at I-20 and 285?
Thank you. That's a great question. The actual final design of the project will begin in the first quarter of calendar year 2023, with actual construction beginning in the third quarter of calendar year 2023. We expect substantial completion to occur in the year 2026.
Our next question, when will the single lane exit ramps be upgraded to 2 or multiple lanes?
Well, the number of lanes on each ramp will depend on the traffic analysis. However, the proposed design does improve many of the ramps in the interchange from 1 lane to 2 lanes where warranted based on future traffic. And that's also noted in the layouts on the website and in the video as well.
Next question. How will this project help the truck traffic in the corridor?
Well, that's a good question. The new interchange improves the system-to-system connections between 285 and I-20. The new ramps will better manage traffic flow, including truck volumes and truck movements and connections through the interchange. The proposed improvements also specifically support travel patterns for trucks between the interchange and key origin and destinations, such as at the Fulton Industrial Boulevard area.
Next question. In Douglas County, will the new lanes extend into the Thornton Road exit or entrance ramps?
So east of Thornton Road, there's an additional lane in each direction, which merges back into I-20, in particular in the eastbound direction, where you enter traveling on I-20, you have a long entrance ramp, which merges back into the existing 3 lanes. And in the future build condition, that outside, that 4th lane will continue all the way down to I-285. So from that point beyond, there will be 4 lanes in each direction.
Next question, or a comment really. First, thank you for your work on this. Traffic relief at I-285, I-20 is badly needed, and the proposed collector distributor lanes to FIB will be a great benefit to truck movement. Thank you for that comment. The next question is, what is the estimated cost of this project?
So as our currently under development work, we are determining the cost right now, and we'll have that available closer to time when we begin the procurement process for the project.
Next question. How will the community be notified about the impacts of construction once the projects begin construction?
Okay, so closer to time, as part of the next round of meetings, next year's our public hearing open house, we'll also have some additional detail and more refinement at that point. And then, one moment. And in addition, we'll have project information posted on the website. And then, of course, you could always contact the project hotline at 470-370-5565 or on the website via the email as well.
Next question. What will be done about the noise level for the residential homes located near I-20?
Okay, for that, I'll ask our GDOT noise specialist, Miles Kemp, to field that response. Miles?
In regards to the traffic noise concerns, noise impacts and the need for noise barriers will be evaluated as part of the environmental assessment process as part of this project. In accordance with GDOT noise policy as well as federal highway regulations regarding noise, we will be moving forward with environmental field work as the roadway design continues to move forward. Impacted property owners and renters that are eligible for a noise barrier will be identified and notified of the opportunity to participate in noise barrier voting prior to finalizing the project design and prior to construction. It is expected that the proposed noise barrier materials will be available for the public to view prior to the voting. Based upon the current schedule that we're looking at for the environmental process, we're anticipating that the public hearing open house or multiple public hearing open houses would be scheduled for 2021, probably in the 4th quarter. Prior to those public hearing open houses, we will have the draft environmental analyses, including the findings of the noise analysis and any proposed noise barriers available at that point in time. So please stay posted for the time being.
Next question. Will there be any impact to the subdivision I-20 eastbound immediately to the right prior to H.E. Holmes exit?
Going from memory eastbound in that direction, I would probably need to look back at the layout. Steve, Kevin? Yeah, I'll let Kevin McKean with the project team take that one.
Thanks, Matt. Right now, looking at the PIOH displays, you may see some proposed right-of-way in that area, but currently we're looking at going through the design of trying to minimize those impacts. So right now, as I said, as the design progresses, we'll look to try to minimize any impacts in that area.
Thank you, Kevin.
Next question. Will there be any rerouting of traffic specifically on local streets through neighborhoods?
No, we won't have any closures on the interstate, and so we would not be rerouting any traffic off of the interstate onto local roadways.
The next question, will there be provisions, i.e. funding for beautification and landscaping replacement at I-20/FIB interchange? Will any improvements be made to the corner of FIB/Donald Lee Hollowell interchange? And finally, will there be any operational improvements to the DH Hollowell interchange?
So at the Hollowell interchange, we will have one additional lane in each direction, south and north on 285 leading up to that interchange. Any work on the Hollowell overpass itself would be determined through another project that we have underway that's still in project development. And any specifics at the location as far as Fulton Industrial Boulevard and that area, regarding beautification and landscaping would still be a work in progress. So at this point, we're just developing early plans, and final plans and designs would come along later. Good question.
Our next question, and we thank our public person, says this may not be answered in this setup or at this particular time, so they understand that. But the question is, how will congestion be mitigated at Thornton Road exit going east as traffic backs down a quarter mile?
Yeah, we may need to follow up with that one with a follow-up response, but we'll be sure to do that.
And we ask anyone who we're mentioning to you that we will have to give you additional information. We ask that you please provide your contact information to the project email, which is westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. That's westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. Thank you for that question. Our next question is, will the interstate be closed during construction? Will the interstate be closed during construction?
No, there may be times where we close certain lanes, but the entire interstate itself would not be closed. And the temporary lane closures would only be for a short period of time and would be communicated to the public ahead of those actual closures taking place. Those would be determined further on during final plans and then during the actual construction staging periods.
Our next question is there a detour planned during construction of this project?
Okay, for that one, I'll ask Steve Lindley on the project team to respond to that question. Steve?
Thank you, Matt. If you have a moment, wait till we can pull up share my screen with you and I can show you the detour. one of the things that is being proposed on this project is the replacement of the Fairburn Road Bridge over I-20. To construct this, we will not be able to maintain traffic over the existing Fairburn Bridge and build a new one. So that will be closed to traffic. As you can see on my screen, we are anticipating the following detour where that you would, from Fairburn Road, get onto MLK, go underneath the MLK Bridge onto Bolton Road, and then up to Collier Drive, and then come back up to Fairburn Road.
Our next question, how will I be notified of a detour prior to this happening?
Prior to any detours going into effect, we will mail information to the residents about the detour and changes, and we'll also have directional signs for the detour to be placed for travelers in advance, noting the appropriate route to take as well.
Our next question, where will equipment be stored during construction?
So construction equipment will be held at designated staging areas chosen for their proximity to the construction site and making sure that they have minimal impact on traffic and nearby residences, though the exact details of that are yet to be determined. And the working hours, I understand, is also part of a question, and that is to be determined as well.
So I hope our attendee got that. Your question of what will be the working hours, that is yet to be determined right now. Our next question, how can I learn about more specific environmental impacts?
Okay, for that, I will ask one of our environmental leads, Emily Ritzler, to respond.
Thank you, Matt. You can reach out to the project team with any specific concerns that you have. And upon completion of the environmental document, that information will be available as well. We are completing what's called an environmental assessment for this project, and we'll be holding a public hearing open house. And it's a formal hearing process to provide your comments on any environmental impacts for the public record. And as Miles stated earlier, the public hearing open house would be towards the end of 2021.
Okay, for those who are members of the public that are listening, let's just remind, if you're new to the process, we are in the middle of the Georgia DOT's I-285, I-20 West Interchange Public Information Open House. It's a virtual event. We ask that you please submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. The chat feature is disabled. You will be in listen-only mode and will remain muted throughout the Q&A. And please also note that the raised hand feature will be disabled. Please keep questions concise, project-specific, and appropriate. We remind you that bandwidth will impact your experience, so be sure to have strong Wi-Fi and a reliable wired connection. If you have a bad connection, feel free to close the session and rejoin. If your network fails, or you have to leave, this live virtual event is being recorded to be used in the official National Environmental Policy Act document and will be posted to the website before October 8th. Closed captioning is available in Spanish and English languages, and just by clicking the gear that's available on your screen. There is also an audio option provided by dialing 312-626-6799 and providing using the ID and passcode that's available on the website. If your question requires further research or a detailed technical response, we will respond within 48 hours, and this response will also be added to the session record. Please send your detailed contact information. If you would like more details to your question, please send that contact information to the West Interchange at dot.ga.gov. Thank you. Our next question: will the residential homes located near I-20 be impacted when it comes to their property? Will we have to move so the lanes will be built?
Well, it would depend on the specific location, but I will let Edie Byers with our right-of-way team respond with a general overview of what's involved with that part of the process. Edie, are you available online?
Hi, Matt. Yes, this is Edie Byers. I'm with the right-of-way department. If you haven't already visited the right-of-way virtual room, I invite you to do that. In there's a couple of documents. The first one is the right-of-way brochure, which will discuss what happens when your property is needed for a transportation facility. This brochure is published by GDOT and available through a link. The second document that is discussed is the different phases of right-of-way and the approximate number of days each phase could take. And for those properties that will be acquired for the project, we don't know at this point, but the department will advise every owner that's impacted well in advance of actual negotiations. And the department holds public hearings, meetings, and individual visits well in advance of the acquisition. If your entire property is needed, you will be offered the fair market value of your home for the entire property. And there's, in addition to an offer to purchase, there'll be relocation benefits. So all of that information is discussed in the right-of-way brochure and can be found on the links on the website.
Thank you, Edie.
The next question: it is really loud in my neighborhood. Will the noise walls be replaced? And will they be different from what the ones that are there now?
It would probably depend on the specific location, but I will relay this over to Miles Kemp with our noise team to respond. Miles?
Thank you, Matt, and I hope everybody's hearing me okay. Again, this is Miles Kemp with the Office of Environmental Services for GDOT. So while we are still in the preliminary phase of our project, we do not have the exact findings for the noise analyses complete just yet. Therefore, we don't know the exact impacts or effects regarding existing or proposed noise barriers at this time. Again, as a reminder, we are expecting that prior to I believe it's Q4 of 2021. So before the end of 2021, we should have the initial noise analyses and barrier analyses complete and ready for public review. As part of that, we are anticipating that any new noise barriers may be constructed to replace any existing walls that might have to be removed as part of the construction process. However, the exact type and location of those barriers are not yet determined and will be determined based upon that noise barrier analysis that is forthcoming. And again, as a reminder, that information will be presented both at the public hearing open house in late 2021 and should be available to the public prior to that meeting.
Our next question: how is this development going to impact businesses on or near exits, more particularly on Fulton Industrial Boulevard and Six Flags Parkway exits?
Okay, for that one, I'll ask Kevin McKean on our design team to respond.
Thank you, Matt. From we're looking at the PIOH displays, there's minimal impacts at Six Flags Parkway due to this project. At Fulton Industrial Boulevard, there is some work going on the westbound on-ramp, but as a contractor is brought aboard on this project, one of his things is he's not allowed to impact any businesses. That'll be written into the specifications. So as far as any impacts to your businesses during this construction of the project will be very minimal.
Our next question, how much will the homes on Collier Court that back up to I-20 West be impacted?
Okay, Kevin, could you respond to that one as well?
Yes, sir. If I'm looking, again, referring to the concept layouts that we have as part of this meeting, there will be some impacts to the houses along Collier Court due to the reconfiguration of the 285 South to I-20 West ramp. But again, this is very conceptual. As we get further along in design and we get to a PIOH, we'll be able to determine more of the exact amount of impacts to those houses. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Kevin.
Next question, when will the project begin?
That's a good question. The actual construction is anticipated to begin in the third quarter of calendar year 2023. All of the preliminary work is actually underway right now, though, and the final design would begin in the first part of 2023. So those preliminary work is underway now. Final design begins early 2023, and actual construction would begin in the fall time frame of 2023.
Our next question, what level of outreach has been done so far to inform people of the project?
So this begins the official formal comment period, but we have had many meetings so far to date with local elected officials and state elected officials as well, along with mailing out informational flyers to local business associations and other organizations as well. And
our next question, if homes are acquired, when will the residents have to move?
okay, for that, I will ask Edie Byers on our right-of-way team to respond as well. Edie?
Sure. Thanks, Matt. There's a process when your property is acquired. Again, if you go to the right-of-way virtual room, there's pre-acquisition activities, which can take about 60 days. We have to have your property appraised. That can take anywhere from 60 to 90 days. Then we have a period of time where there's negotiations to purchase. And based on the difficulties and the complexity of a parcel, negotiations can go as long as 120 days. All property owners that are impacted have one-on-one meetings with an assigned right-of-way service provider in the future when time comes. And once there's an agreement reached, it can close within 30 to 90 days. But property owners, once it's acquired, you have 60 days from that point to a minimum of 60 days to vacate. So that process can take from beginning to end as long as 8 to 12 months. A lot of times in these projects, we have the flexibility of allowing property owners to look for their new home. There's several benefits when your house is acquired in its entirety, which are covered in detail in the right-of-way brochure. Benefits over and above your fair market value. So you're not required to move anytime soon. You have ample time, and a lot of times in these types of projects, we'll have the luxury, if the project timeline permits, to work with you in finding your new home. And you will be assigned a one-on-one right-of-way agent and relocation agent to help you through that process.
And Edie, one more thing. I think we had a question following up to the right-of-way as to when would that process begin? Maybe a rough time frame.
Matt, it's my understanding that right-of-way acquisition will not start until 2022 at this time, but maybe we might want to reply to that via an email if they could submit that, just to make sure. Maybe someone on staff could confirm, but if there's any acquisitions, they won't even begin until, my understanding, 2022.
Okay. Thank you, Edie. And we'll also try to get back with the person
Sure.
and let them know 100% for sure.
Again, just a reminder for those who need additional information, we ask that you please submit your detailed contact information and the question that you asked to westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. That's westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. Our next question, will lane closures impact my commute during construction?
Okay. For that one, I'll ask Steve Lindley on our design team to respond. Steve?
Thank you, Matt. The department works to minimize lane closures. You will see that during the day, most lanes, they will be open. If there's closure of lanes, it generally occurs during off-peak hours, such as at night and on the weekends.
Thank you, Steve.
Next question. Are my tax dollars being used to fund this project?
Yes, this project is being funded with a combination of both federal and state gas tax dollars that are collected and allocated to Georgia DOT annually to make improvements such as this interchange project.
Next question, what is the MMIP?
Okay, the MMIP stands for Major Mobility Investment Program, and it is a grouping of 18 projects across the state. A lot of them are in Metro Atlanta, which are as a combination of projects that are intended to yield a significant reduction in congestion along key freight and passenger corridors. The projects will create additional capacity and improve operations for both the movement of freight and people, while enhancing safety and reducing travel times. And the projects have been underway in various stages since 2016. And more information on the Major Mobility Investment Program is located on GDOT's main webpage. And if you go to dot.ga.gov, you can then go to /is/MMIP for additional details. Or you could navigate to the main page and then go to the programs drop-down box at the top of the screen and click on that, and then scroll down and click on MMIP.
Next question. For the homes on Argus Circle, ARGUS, Argus Circle, with I-20 behind us, how will the project impact us?
Okay, for that one, I will relay it to Kevin McKean on the design team.
Thank you, Matt. Again, please refer to the PIOH displays that are in this part of this meeting. That'll give you an idea of the proposed impacts along Argus Circle. But based on our design and the widening along on I-20, we do anticipate some impacts. As we get further along on design, this will further be refined. And any potential right-of-way or takes or to your property, we'll get with you as the project progresses, from our right-of-way folks as well as from GDOT. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Kevin.
The next question, along the lines too, on properties, will properties along the south side of I-20 from HE Homes to I-285 be impacted by the construction? Mainly homes along Hedgewood Lane.
Okay, for that one, I'll also ask Kevin McKean on our design team to respond. Kevin?
Thanks. Again, looking at the concept layouts, from looking at the map, Hedgewood Lane is towards the very end of the construction of our project. I don't anticipate any impacts to these properties in that area. But again, as the project progresses, we'll look at the design more in depth, and then if there's any impacts to your property, right away, individuals from GDOT as well as the team will get with any property owners in that area.
Thank you, Kevin.
Next question. What is considered a noise impact?
Okay, that's a very good question, and I'll ask Miles Kemp, GDOT's noise person, to respond to that one. Miles?
Thank you, Matt. Hold on one second. As part of our noise analyses that we are going to be completing are currently underway, we are responsible for assessing not only current traffic noise levels, but also traffic noise levels that we would be expecting with the construction of the proposed project. According to GDOT noise policy as well as the federal noise regulations, there are noise thresholds that are outlined specifically as impact thresholds, primarily for residential properties, community resources such as churches and schools, and other such resources that would typically be thought of as noise sensitive. Those noise thresholds kind of vary depending upon the exact use. For residential properties, we typically think of a 67 decibel threshold as really cutting off the impact kind of start. If we do have homes that are expected to be impacted, we may have to consider noise abatement, typically in the form of noise barriers, as a form of mitigation to attenuate those noise impacts. The noise thresholds for outdoor areas for community resources such as businesses, pools, things of that nature, hotels, typically have a impact threshold of 72 decibels. Additionally, we also have criteria for a substantial traffic noise increase. In those circumstances which are typically fairly rare along busy existing roadways such as I-285 and I-20, we would have to see a traffic noise increase of at least 15 decibels to reach that substantial noise increase criteria. Again, without having the noise analysis completed this time, it's tough to say whether or not that would be expected. It is unlikely, though.
Thank you, Miles.
The next question, where can I find the virtual design of the layout of projects, of the project that will impact our homes along the corridor?
I will ask Angela Alexander on our project team to respond to that one.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks, Matt. I will, if you'll give me 1 second, I can share my screen. So the visualization that was shown earlier in the presentation can be found on the PIOH website. The website address can be seen above, 0013918.scoutfeedback.com. The visualization is found here above on the top of the screen, and the concept displays can be found just below them. Each individual roll plot is a section of the project, and all of them can be found within our PIOH virtual room.
Thank you, Angela.
Next question. Where can I find the anticipated design that may impact Collier Court on this project?
Okay, I think it is a similar response to what Angela just showed, where you could actually see it on the website. But Steve has it pulled up. Take a look at that.
If you give me a moment while I try to share my screen. So here is Collier Court right here. And if you go on to the PIOH displays that Angela just mentioned, this would be the third one. This right here is the south to west ramp, which would affect these properties back here at the back end of Collier Court. The red line is what we're anticipating the proposed right-of-way to be at this time. So if you could go on to the exhibit that Angela just mentioned, you can zoom in a little bit better, but that'll give you an idea of what we anticipate the impacts to your existing property to be.
Thank you, Steve.
Next question. You mentioned the purchase of these homes that may be impacted at their fair market value, but you also mentioned the appraisal value. Would that be considered?
Okay, I'll ask Edie Byers on our right-of-way team to walk us through the fair market value and the appraisal values and those two terms.
Sure,
Edie?
thanks, Matt. The federal and state code states that property owners will be offered just compensation, and in Georgia, just compensation is interpreted as fair market value, which is determined by an appraisal report conducted by appraisers that are certified on GDOT's list. And they will prepare a report, and then it has to go through a review process by a review appraiser who will determine and place the fair market value. And that is what the offer that GDOT presents to each property owner is based upon.
Thank you, Edie.
Next question. Are there any accommodations for transit, i.e. BRT?
Okay, that's a good question. Transit operations will benefit from the improved travel times through the corridor. However, there are no specific transit projects included in the reconstruction of the interchange. But the project does not preclude transit investment by other agencies with subsequent projects in the future.
Thank you. If you're just joining us, just a reminder of the rules of this virtual PIOH. We ask that you submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. The chat feature is disabled. You will be in listen-only mode and remain muted throughout the Q&A. Please keep your questions concise, project-specific, and appropriate. Be reminded that bandwidth will impact your experience, so be sure to have a strong Wi-Fi or a reliable wired connection. If you have a bad connection and you must leave or close the session, feel free to do so and rejoin. If your network fails or you have to leave, please know that this live virtual event is being recorded and will be placed on the website before October 8th. Closed captioning is available in Spanish and English, and it's available by clicking the gear on your screen. There's also an audio option provided by dialing 312-626-6799 and providing the ID and passcode that's on the website. If you have questions that require further research or a detailed technical response, we will respond within 48 hours. The response will be added to the session record. And we ask that you please leave your detailed contact information at the project's email box, which is westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. The next question, will there be a better access from H.E. Holmes, Hamilton E. Holmes to I-285 South in lieu of crossing 4 lanes in seemingly less than 1/10 of a mile in a very short length?
Yes, in short, there will be, and I'll let Steve Lindley talk about that movement and how it will be reconstructed from a left-hand to a right-hand exit.
If you can give me a moment while we bring up the screen, and then I can show you what the layout looks like. So currently today, as you're getting on the I-20 going westbound, you have to cross all the lanes to get into this left-hand exit movement to get to 285 going south. What we're proposing on doing is shifting the interstate, and you will have a right-hand exit that will basically be in the same location that it is today, but you will no longer have to cross all these lanes to get over to make that movement to the south.
Thank you, Steve.
Next question, can I-20 eastbound to I-285 northbound ramp be widened from 1 lane to 3 lanes instead of 2 lanes because it is often very congested with a lot of 18-wheelers merging onto 285 north? The person then puts in parentheses, I don't believe they can drive through Atlanta on I-20 inside the perimeter, thus the weaving of truck traffic.
Yes, you're correct. Large trucks are not allowed inside the perimeter unless they have a pickup or drop-off in there. It's probably worth noting that in widening from 1 to 2, we're also replacing that existing tight loop ramp with a more directional flyover. And so we believe, based on our traffic forecasts, which take into account future growth in the region and across the state through 2046, that 2 lanes will be able to better handle that traffic adequately. But I'll also ask Steve Lindley on our design team to kind of talk through some of the more details associated with that new flyover that'll replace that existing eastbound to northbound loop ramp.
As Matt mentioned, one of the things that will probably improve the situation the most is the design speed of that movement. That loop ramp is designed probably at best at 25 miles an hour. The flyover that you see in the exhibits and in the rendering will be a 45-mile-an-hour design speed. And as Matt also mentioned, the traffic projections forecast and basically that only 2 lanes is needed. But again, you're increasing the capacity by going from 1 to 2 lanes, and you're also increasing the design speed of the facility from 25 to 45 miles an hour.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. And it's probably worth noting for those that have joined since we began the meeting, at 5:30, we will rerun a brief presentation and some opening remarks. Again, if you were not here at the beginning at 4 o'clock, we will walk through those remarks again as well. If you were here at 4, feel free to continue listening, but it'll be the same information shared again. In the meantime, we will continue taking questions.
Our next question, are there underground utilities within the project limit, and how will those be addressed during construction of the project?
Okay, yes, there are. And I will ask Kevin McKean on our design team to take that one. Kevin?
Cool, thanks, Matt. Yeah, there are several major utilities located within the project corridor, such as Colonial Pipeline, AGL, as well as Georgia Power. So there's been ongoing coordination with them through this concept development. We'll continue to coordinate with them through costing plans, and then we'll try to accommodate their design, with us, and then we'll just, any relocations would be part of this project.
A follow-up utility question, will utility relocation be paid for by the Georgia DOT?
Okay, in general, any project cost incurred by the project would be paid for by GDOT, but it'll depend on the utility. And Kevin, do you have anything additional to add to that?
Just to reiterate, we have been coordinating with the major utilities throughout the corridor to not affect the project, but we're taking that into account as far as the overall project costs. And like I said, we will continue to coordinate with them to help advance this project and come up with a solution for the design.
Thank you.
Next question, is there any opportunity to provide walking or biking connections within the project limits?
Okay, that's a good question. Most of the improvements are within the limits of the interstate, which would not allow and provide for walking or biking facilities. However, bridges such as Fairburn Road, which is proposed to be replaced as part of the project, would include sidewalks on each side.
I think a similar question was asked earlier, but we'll ask again, will the single lane exit ramps be upgraded to 2 or multiple lanes?
It depends on the location, and that will be driven based on the traffic forecasts, which are forecasted based on planned growth within the region and across the state. Some of them will be upgraded to 2 lanes. A handful will remain at 1. So, one moment, please. Okay, and Christy on our project team, Christy, if you're there, if you would just sort of talk through the traffic in general, sort of a good overview of the traffic and the forecasting and how that plays into the design of the project.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. So, the traffic conditions, we start with the forecasting with the regional traffic growth rates and study, the traffic volumes for 2026 and 2048. And then to analyze the future conditions, we put these volumes into the traffic simulations model. So, we developed traffic simulation models within the traffic studies, and then, find out, how the traffic operations would be in the future conditions. So that based on the traffic simulation models and other analysis, we decide, where we need a 2 lanes and we need a, 1 lane or a 3 lanes. So the number of lanes are warranted based on the exact traffic simulation model analysis. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Christy. And I will ask Kevin, once he gets a moment, to walk us through which of the ramps would be going from 1 lane to 2 lane. Correction, I'll be asking Steve to walk us through that on the layout.
All right, Matt, thank you. Could you go ahead and give me a moment to pull up my screen though, please? Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties here. If you could just hold on for 1 moment, please.
The overhead lighting and along each corridor. Will the lighting design incorporate some type of unique deterrent to eliminate this problem?
So we are not quite to that point yet, but I know in a lot of projects within GDOT to avoid the wire theft, we are putting the access hatches into the light poles much higher than they are today to help reduce the opportunity for theft to occur. I don't know if any of the guys on the team have anything to offer beyond that, but as we progress through the project, we'll be thinking through some more in-depth details such as that. But I believe the access hatches would be higher up on the poles than simply at ground level as they've been in the past.
Our next question, how are the environmental districts being impacted?
Okay, for that, I'll ask Emily Ritzler on our environmental team to respond. Emily?
Thank you. So right now where we are in the process is we just on sorry about that. Right now where we are in the process is we have completed environmental resource surveys, which means we have gone out and identified resources in the area, which includes historic districts, both a residential historic district and an industrial historic district. And right now we are looking at what we call the assessment of effects, which will actually look at the impacts of the design, the conceptual design on those resources. And that will all be documented in the environmental assessment, and we'll be able to share what those impacts are when we come back out for the public hearing open house. For more specific questions on when the environmental assessment is available, that will be available for review and question at that time.
Thank you, Emily.
The next question, will Georgia DOT be staying within the existing right-of-way for the project?
It'll depend on the actual location, but in some places we will need to acquire additional right-of-way where we cannot stay within the existing footprint.
There's one last question. Is there any consideration of smart vehicle technology for the corridor?
So the project will include fiber to wire it into GDOT's existing intelligent transportation system, known as Georgia Navigator. So we will communicate with that. We also, it's important to note that it doesn't preclude plans for future projects in the region as well. And one thing that we've often heard from the industry that's exploring both connected vehicles and automated vehicles is that one of the most valuable things for them are easy to recognize and well-maintained signs and pavement striping as well. So it's kind of a general thing that we are hearing from the industry.
Currently, there are no questions in the queue, and so we will be on a 5-minute break, and at 5:30 we'll start with a presentation, and the presentation and the video will occur at 5:30. Thank you.
All right, well, thanks to those that are still joining us and those that have recently joined in. We know a lot of people have been coming and going over the course of the past hour and a half. So we just wanted to take this time to go back through the presentation that we showed initially at 4 o'clock. And then we'll be open to take any questions after that point. So let me go in to share my screen. So one moment. Okay, and as we mentioned at the beginning an hour and a half ago, here are the basic rules for the public information open house. A little different format than we normally have when it's a live event in the past, in-person event, I should say. Everybody will be in listen-only mode, and you can submit questions and use the raise hand feature will be disabled during the meeting. Please keep questions concise, project specific, and appropriate. Bandwidth might affect your experience. If you have a bad connection at any point, feel free to close and rejoin. If your network fails or you have to leave, the event is being recorded. The event is in closed captioning in Spanish and English as well, and can be accessed by clicking the gear on your screen. There's also an audio option by dialing the number, the ID number, and then the passcode number you see there. And some of the questions might require a more detailed response, and for those we will get back with you, or feel free to send those questions or any others to the email address on the screen, westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. Oops. And so now we will go through the presentation. I am Matthew Fowler with Georgia DOT's Office of Innovative Delivery. I'm the program manager responsible for the project. And today, September 22nd, we'll also be having another meeting, same content as tonight, on Thursday of this week, September 24th. To briefly touch on the Major Mobility Investment Program, it's a suite of projects, 18 of them across the state with a heavy Metro Atlanta focus. The one we're focusing on this evening is I-285 and 20 here on the west side of town. We're also pursuing a similar project on the east side of town at 285 and 20 in DeKalb County. A series of express lane projects on the northern half of 285 and up 400. A series of bridge replacements and smaller scale interchange improvements on the northern half of 285. A couple of widenings on I-85 and Gwinnett. On the right of your screen, you see an inset, and that is the yellow line, which is our commercial vehicle lanes stretching from north of Macon to the McDonough area. Those would be truck-only lanes. And then on the lower right of your screen are the projects down in the Savannah area, the reconstruction of the 1695 interchange, and the widening of I-16 between I-95 and 516 to support freight coming out of the ports and also reduce congestion in that area. The Major Mobility Investment Program began in 2016, and we've made a lot of really good progress since then. Some of the noted activities in 2018 included on the I-285 top-end express lanes, pursuing the one federal decision process, which is a streamlined approach to the environmental permitting. We also secured a federal grant, an infra grant for the State Route 400 express lanes. We've had extensive agency coordination with MARTA, the State Road and Tollway Authority, and the US DOT's Federal Highway Administration throughout the entire length of the project. A lot of robust industry engagement. To date, we've had well over 300 various meetings with different stakeholders. And just this year in 2020, we finished up the widening of I-85 on the northern end of Gwinnett, stretching on up into Jackson County. And we are underway with construction at the I-16, I-95 interchange and the widening of I-16 directly in Savannah. Focusing on the 285/20 West Interchange, this screen here shows us the life of a project. We began working on this project a couple of years ago, which includes the project initiation and planning stage you see up there. Presently, we're in the project development stage, which includes the initial concept and design, developing a concept report, hosting public information open house meetings, which is what we are having tonight. Any early acquisition of right-of-way where it might make sense could occur during this stage. Conducting the public hearing open house meetings, which would occur in roughly a year from now. And then procuring the construction developer, that would be the actual team that would do the final design and construct the project. Following this, it includes the construction phase with various activities there. And then beyond that, once construction's completed, is just the ongoing operations and maintenance of the interchange. Some of our early findings you see noted on the screen here. And we've explored several concepts to come up with the one that best addresses the needs in the corridor. Minimizing environmental and right-of-way impacts are key factors in determining which concept moves forward. We held a concept team meeting back this past summer, and that was with local jurisdiction representatives and teams of engineers within GDOT to respond to, offer up ideas to what we have now posted on our website. And our traffic analysis, we forecasted traffic for the year 2026, which is when we expect substantial completion to occur, and the year 2046, 20 years beyond, which is typical for any GDOT project. And not surprisingly, the traffic is forecasted to increase substantially, including trucks in the area. And the traffic forecasts are largely based on both regional, local, and statewide planned growth that is expected to happen. Today, we have several single lane ramps, some left-hand exits, 3 to be specific, and also the southbound to westbound movement have been identified as challenges within the interchange. Again, we are in the environmental process right now. We've gone through and completed several environmental resource reports for both history, archaeology, and ecology to identify resources in the corridors that we will do our best to avoid impacting. Some of those key resources include potential residential and industrial historic districts and multiple streams and wetlands. We also conducted an underwater archaeological survey around I-20 in the Chattahoochee River. And our next steps is to continue the refinement and determining the assessment of effects for each of those. Here on the screen, you see a sketch of the project location. It begins on the west on I-20, just east of Thornton Road, State Route 6, and continues down to inside the perimeter, 285 to Hamilton E. Holmes Drive. On 285, it begins on the south at Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and then extends up to Donnelly Hollowell Parkway. While most of the work is focused directly at the interchange with ramp replacements, there will be some widenings beyond the direct location of the interchange to ensure that motorists can access the ramps that we are reconstructing. Some of the key points are removal of the 3 left-hand exits, improving the geometric design and vertical grades. That just means flattening out the curves and flattening the hills some to help traffic, especially trucks flow more smoothly. Construction of a westbound collector distributor system on I-20 from 285 through the Fulton Industrial Boulevard interchange. And that is a parallel freeway to I-20 westbound. You'll see an example of that in the project video here shortly. And several of the 1-lane ramps will be reconstructed as 2-lane ramps as well. In addition, we are including auxiliary lanes along I-20 from just east of Thornton Road down to Hamilton E. Holmes for a distance of about 8 miles. Some additional lanes along 285 from Donnelly Hollowell down to MLK to smooth flow through the interchange. Numerous bridges will be replaced or widened, and numerous walls will be identified as well to minimize impacts. Lots of utilities in the corridor, especially at Georgia Power and Colonial Pipeline, and we are working with those companies now. And we are also working through the identification of right-of-way needs. As with any project, Georgia DOT goes through an environmental process and analysis, and we're responsible for filing the appropriate documentation to ensure that all the projects comply with applicable federal laws and regulations. This public information open house is only one part of that overall process. We'll want to make sure that we are minimizing impacts as much as possible on those resources in the corridor. And our Office of Environmental Services, which has different work units focusing on cultural resources, ecological resources, air quality and traffic noise analysis, and NEPA specialists, National Environmental Policy Act specialists, continue to develop new methods to streamline the process and advise the engineers on the project team. And throughout the entire process, the environmental and design team and other subject matter experts are working constantly to avoid, minimize, or mitigate any impacts to any potential resources. In addition to this online virtual PIOH session tonight and Thursday night, we also have an online website that you can go to, which continues. It's an extension of our public information open house. You see the website at the top of the screen there, and it's one way that you can access any of the content that you're seeing tonight. Reach out to us with any questions you might have. And also it connects us with the public so that we can bring the public's vision of ideal transportation to Georgia for the corridor. There are several opportunities to submit comments. You can go to the website, dot.ga.gov/I-285-I20W. You can also email your comments to westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. You can mail us your comments to Mr. Eric Duff at the address on your screen. And we also have a project hotline number you can call, 470-370-5565. The official public comment period is open until October 8th. But if you go through any of these avenues to ask us a question after October 8th, we will be glad to respond as well. I'm now going to pause and share my screen with Angela Alexander, another team member, and she will play a video for us. If we have any technical difficulties, we will try to work through those as soon as possible. If the video doesn't show perfectly well on your screen, feel free to go to our website and you can view the video there anytime as well. So give us just a moment. Hello, I am Matthew Fowler, the Georgia DOT's Office of Innovative Deliveries Program Manager for the I-285 at I-20 West Interchange project. This project is part of Georgia DOT's Major Mobility Investment Program designed to reduce congestion, increase safety, and improve operational and geometric deficiencies within the interchange. The project stretches 6 miles on I-20 from Thornton Road to Hamilton E. Holmes Drive On I-285, it begins just south of the Martin Luther King Jr. Drive interchange and stretches 2.4 miles north to near the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway interchange. This visualization provides an aerial view of the proposed improvements. The project begins with the addition of a new I-20 eastbound lane near Factory Shoals Road to Six Flags Parkway for approximately 2 miles, with an additional lane continuing to the interchange. A 4-lane collector-distributor CD system is proposed on I-20 between the I-285 at I-20 West interchange and Fulton Industrial Boulevard in the westbound direction only, which is to the left of your screen. Next, the bridge over MLK Jr. Drive will be reconstructed to accommodate future traffic volumes. Further east, the Fairburn Road Bridge over the interstate will also be replaced and updated to include sidewalks. This aerial view of the interchange shows the reconstruction of the ramps northbound and southbound to I-285 and the connections from I-285 going eastbound and westbound on I-20. Within the interchange, all 3 left-hand exits will be removed and replaced with right-hand exits. Several single-lane ramps will be replaced with 2-lane ramps. The single-lane loop ramp from I-20 East to I-285 North will be removed and replaced with a 2-lane direct flyover. This visualization continues through the interchange on I-20 to the eastern end of the project at Hamilton E. Holmes Drive. Next, we turn north on I-285, beginning at MLK Jr. Drive, the southern end of the project. To improve traffic flow, the project will separate the traffic exiting from I-285 southbound to Fulton Industrial Boulevard, I-20, and MLK using a graded ramp. The geometry of the I-285 southbound to I-20 westbound ramp will be improved to accommodate a 45 mile per hour design speed instead of the current 35 mile per hour design speed. On southbound I-285, the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway interchange ramp will become an auxiliary lane, widening I-285 southbound from the existing 4 to 5 lanes. The visualization goes through the interchange and concludes at the Donald Lee Hollowell Parkway interchange on I-285, the most northern end of the project. Currently, the environmental studies have begun with identifying environmental attributes located within the corridor. The studies will identify and evaluate the potential impacts to a wide variety of resources, such as streams, wetlands, protected species, historic and archaeological resources, air quality, noise, community impacts, and others. As part of the environmental process, public engagement will take place in various formats, including a virtual public information open house. Once the draft environmental assessment document is completed, it will be made available to the public for review of the complete environmental findings and any mitigation measures proposed at a future public hearing open house. Thank you for your interest in the I-285 at I-20 West Interchange project. For more information, visit our website at majormobilityga.com. All right, thank you. Let me turn the volume back down here. And let me go back to sharing my screen with one last slide we'll have. So we'll now migrate to the second round of Q&A that we might have. Again, please submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. The chat feature is disabled. You will be in listen-only mode, and the raise hand feature is disabled. Please keep any questions concise, project-specific, and appropriate. Bandwidth might impact your experience to have the best signal. If you have a bad connection, feel free to close and rejoin. If your network fails or you do have to leave, this is being recorded and will be posted to the website before October 8th. We have closed captioning available in both Spanish and English by clicking the gear on your screen. There's also an audio option noted with the numbers there. And if your question requires further research or a detailed response, we may have to email you back within 24 to 48 hours. And the response will be added to the record of the session. And feel free to please send any detailed contact information if you have a detailed question to the website so that we can follow up with you. And I wish I mentioned this earlier, but if there are any elected officials on the call, please let us know with the Q&A feature, and we'll be sure to recognize your attendance. And we do appreciate you along with everybody else joining in. So again, we will transition to the portion where we do the Q&A. And feel free to ask any questions again, and we'll be glad to respond to those. We did have a lot of really good questions during our first hour-and-a-half session, and we will be here for the next hour until 7 o'clock as well. Probably worth noting that a lot of the content or all of the content is also on our project website, including the project layouts, which show a great deal of detail on the proposed improvements. Okay, and we're actually going to have Steve Lindley with the project team walk us through the layouts at this point. So I will transition it over to Steve.
Thank you, Matthew. If you have a moment, and we can bring up the screen and we can walk through the exhibits. And what was seen in the visual presentation, what we'll look at now is just a more graphic display of what the project looks like. As has been mentioned, there's existing 4 lanes that are going eastbound and that currently reduced to 3 lanes right at Factory Shoals Road. And what we're going to do is we will pick up the 4th lane, and that lane gets extended all the way through the interchange. A lot of what we're going to do will be rather specific or similar to what is out there now on the eastbound traffic of I-20 going east, other than we've added a lane to the outside. There will be the ramp meters. Their location will be based on making sure that none of the traffic backs up onto the crossroad. Here again, we have 4 lanes that are going eastbound, and coming from Riverside Parkway, we have the 1 lane that merges into the 4 lanes. The next we have Six Flags Parkway, and again 4 lanes going through, and the lanes merge into that. As we cross the Chattahoochee. We are not doing any widening, but we have the 4 lanes going through. Coming up to Fulton Industrial Boulevard, we have an additional off lane that is going to be developed. So we will have 1 lane that'll be specific, being off movement to Fulton Industrial, and there being an option lane with the 2nd lane to the inside. We have 4 lanes that will go over Fulton Industrial, and at Fulton Industrial, we will have 2 lanes that come on. So right about where my cursor is, we will have 6 lanes right at this point. The outside on-ramp will merge immediately downstream from where we're in the area where my cursor is, and then we will have 5 lanes that are going to the east. In this area, we have shifted the interstate to the south. A lot of that has to do with avoiding impacts to the residential properties, which are all cultural resources. Moving on from Fulton Industrial Boulevard, we have 5 lanes that are going to the east. 1 lane will get off going to the north with another option lane that can get off or go through. Then we have 4 lanes that will go immediately to the east under Fairburn Road. And then as we get to the ramp that is going to I-285 southbound and to MLK, again, the outer lane is an off ramp where you have to get off, and the lane next to it is an option lane where you can either stay on I-20 to the east or go through, or get off or go through. Then we have 3 lanes that go through the interchange on I-20. And then we have a merge condition for the traffic that is coming from I-285 southbound to I-20 eastbound. And then the traffic from MLK and I-285 northbound will come on as a free flow lane through right under Lakewood Road. Going to the west, we're going to have the 4 lanes. We'll develop a 5th lane that will be onto the off ramp going to I-285 southbound and to MLK. We will have 4 lanes that will go through in this area. If you were earlier, we mentioned this, that the interstate will be shifted to the south here. As we go through, you'll have 2 lanes, as you currently do now, that get off at going to I-285 northbound, and they merge onto 1 lane. It is fairly close to the existing location that it is today. You have 3 lanes that will go through the interchange on I-285 that's on I-20 westbound. Coming from the south, we have, these are the lanes that are coming from I-285 northbound. There are 2 lanes that will go from I-285 northbound to I-20 westbound. There's also a ramp that is coming from MLK that will merge onto this ramp. And then we have ramps that are coming from MLK and I-285 northbound that will go to the east. So this is where your CD is going to develop. You're going to have traffic, 2 lanes that are coming from I-285 southbound. They will merge with the 2 lanes that are coming from I-285 northbound. We will have 3 lanes on I-20. This will be the mainline traffic. And to the north of there, we have the 2 lanes from each direction of I-285, and they will come together and they will develop the 4-lane CD. The 4-lane CD will extend over the new bridge over MLK, and then we'll have a movement where 2 lanes can get off from the CD onto off to Fulton Industrial Boulevard, and 2 lanes, or excuse me, 3 lanes that will continue on to I-20 in the westbound direction. These 3 lanes, you'll have 3 mainline lanes and 3 lanes in the CD at this location. We then have 2 lanes coming from FIB that merge into 1 lane that merges into all 6 lanes will come together right before the Chattahoochee River. These 6 lanes carry down until we get to Six Flags Parkway, where we will lose 1 of the lanes, and we'll have 5 lanes that go through. And then at Riverside Drive, we lose 1 lane, and then we taper back down, and we have the 4 lanes that match the existing conditions. And with that, Matt, I'll give it back to you.
I think we had a question.
Our next question about the CD project, CD Lanes project on FIB. The person asked, can you please explain again what that is? It sounded like a service road. Is that correct?
Yeah. Steve might have answered this as he further explained it, but a collector distributor is a little different than a service road or a frontage road. If you think of those, they typically provide access to adjoining properties. A collector distributor is simply separating the entering and exiting traffic from the mainline traffic. So if you can think today, when you leave town on I-20, the traffic entering I-20 as you go westbound from 285 is immediately entering I-20, and then traffic is immediately exiting in front of them to go to Fulton Industrial Boulevard. This would separate those movements off on a parallel freeway, and those movements would not interfere with the main line of I-20, and they would rejoin I-20 between Fulton Industrial and the Chattahoochee River after they have gotten up to speed and the local traffic has exited to Fulton Industrial. So I hope that expands a little more on how the collector distributor works. Okay.
Next.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Next question. Good evening. For the ramps going from I-285 southbound to I-20 eastbound and I-285 northbound to I-20 eastbound, are there any considerations to adding an auxiliary lane from the merge point to the exit to Holmes Drive and making the exit to Holmes Drive an exit only lane? And just some explanation, these 2 merge points might cause congestion during heavy traffic periods. Currently, that is mitigated because the northbound and southbound approaches to I-20 merge prior to merging into I-20. And they say, I hope this makes sense. I think they're asking, can we consider an auxiliary lane from the merge point of I-20, 285 southbound to I-20 eastbound and I-285 northbound to I-20 eastbound?
Yes, that question does make sense, and I'll ask Steve Lindley on the design team to speak to it. I think I at least follow what you were asking.
Yeah, I follow what you're asking. As was explained a little earlier by Christy, if you were on, all of the movements were based on traffic projections and level of services. So we did analysis on the movements that are coming from both I-285 northbound and I-285 southbound, and we had come up with one alternative and then it switched, and we have made modifications so that the I-285 northbound to I-285 eastbound comes on as a free flow condition. But again, all these movements are based on the traffic analysis that we did and also the grades and the amount of trucks.
Thank you, Steve. And Christy, she is on our traffic analysis team. Do you have anything additional to add on the work y'all did with that?
Sorry, I think Steve covered everything. So we made I-285 northbound to eastbound a free flow, and then 285 southbound to eastbound that will merge to that. And you know, I know there is some existing congestion conditions right now, and looking at the future conditions. But yeah, as Stephen mentioned, that we looked at different scenarios, and based on the forecast volumes, you know, we've decided that the number of lanes and where it merges to from where. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Appreciate that.
Our next question is a follow-up from our participant that asked about the CD lanes. He said, thank you for your answer on CD lanes, makes sense. How long would construction be and how would it impact the exit on FIB? He's speaking as a retail business owner on FIB.
Okay, that's a good question. And I'll let Kevin McKean on the engineering team take that.
Based on initial analysis, we anticipate construction to be about 3 to 3.5 years for this project. Again, that's subject to change once we get the developer on board, have a better understanding of the construction, and that will be disseminated to everyone out. As far as the exit for FIB, there's a minimum amount of work being done. We're proposing to extend, currently there's a 1 right turn lane. We're proposing to 2 turn lanes. And also FIB exit will operate better in the build condition as we are providing that CD lane that will provide traffic, you know, easy access for trucks to get to FIB. So if that answers your question.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think it might be helpful if we have Emily Ritzler on our environmental team, just kind of give a general overview of all of the activities that have been taking place on the project related to the environmental process. Emily?
Sure. So this project is going through the Federal Environmental Review process, which is under the National Environmental Policy Act. And there are different types of documents that are done for that. We are completing a document that's referred to as an environmental assessment. And we really are going through several phases of that process, which starts with identifying environmental resources in the area. And the identification of those resources is both natural environment features as well as community resources and anything that may have impacts to the social environment as well. So we have completed work on what we call resource identification, which is a very thorough and detailed look at the community and the surrounding areas around the interchange. And the studies completed with the resource identification include looking at historic resources, archaeological resources, and also we've done the ecology study. We are also working on some analysis of in the environmental justice, which is looking at how the project moves forward in relation to impacts to minority and low-income communities. That's underway at the moment. And then we've also done underwater archaeology for the Chattahoochee River crossing. Once we complete the resource identification and we know what sort of features are in the area and where we need to look to avoid or minimize impacts to the different resources and to the community, we give that information back to our design team and work with them closely on those minimization and avoidance efforts. So since that time, we've been working with the design team on different changes to the process to try to really reduce the amount of impact that we might have. And then the next step in the process for us is to complete what we call an assessment of effects. And we do this in all of these different areas as well. And I didn't mention, and I should mention, that we're also, we have initiated the noise impact analysis, and that's a major piece of the work that we'll be doing. So we've identified areas that may be sensitive to noise from the project, and we run detailed models, noise models, to assess what the potential impacts would be. And we are in the process of building those models right now. I think we've discussed noise a little bit today, but we will be coming back out with the results of the noise analysis and how we would mitigate that either through noise barriers or other measures when we hold the public hearing towards the end of next year. Once we complete the assessment of effects, we begin moving into the full documentation of what is called an environmental assessment, and that is the document that brings together a comprehensive assessment of all of these different parts and pieces into one place to look collectively and cumulatively at the effects of the project and how we would continue to mitigate those. And there will be an opportunity to review and comment on that document when it becomes available, which will be, again, during the hearing phase about a year from now. Matt?
Thank you, Emily. Appreciate that.
Our next question, with the interchange configuration as proposed, would the bridges over I-285 at MLK Drive and Boulder Park Drive need to be rebuilt? That could be a major traffic impact to the communities during the project.
Sure, that's a good question. I'll let Steve Lindley on our design engineering team take that one.
The traffic from I-285 eastbound will taper back into, or excuse me, I-20 eastbound will taper back into I-285 before MLK, so neither of those bridges are going to be reconstructed.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. It might help if Kevin could walk us through some of the next steps as far as where we go from here with the project.
I'm glad to do that. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, since at the step we're right now, we're at a concept development phase. So we'll take comments from the public hearing we have, or public information open house we have today as well as Thursday. We'll take those comments, we'll look at it and see if it affects any of the design that we're looking at right now. The next step after that would be to go to what we call a costing plans phase. This is 30% plans that will be produced for the design build team that we brought aboard on for this project. This is a very lot of heavy lifting as far as the design work is for this project. We have over 28 bridges, 8 miles worth of roadway work. So we'll be providing those plans to a design build team that will then go out and put bids together. As far as a procurement process, like I said, once these plans are ready to go, they'll go to the design build team, they'll go ahead and bid on it, and then with the team with the winning or lowest bid as far as technical score will be awarded the project, and then it will go ahead and go to construction, which we anticipate within the next 2 years or so. So hopefully that helps a little bit of hopefully that helps with what the next steps are for this project. But like you can see, there's still a lot of work ahead of us on this project, and it's nowhere near what, as far as a footprint is decided. These meetings will help us, determine what we have moving forward. So I hope that helps.
Okay, and Miles, for those that are joining us now and might not have been here in the first hour and a half, could you maybe just speak a little through about noise in general? I know that tends to be questions and concerns with the public.
Absolutely, Matt. Again, I'm Miles Kemp with the Georgia Department of Transportation's Office of Environmental Services, and I'm the Air and Noise Section Manager. So as Emily touched upon previously, we're currently starting the environmental technical studies, the assessment of effects, and part of those studies include the analysis and assessment of both existing and proposed future traffic noise levels once the project would be constructed in the future. As part of those analyses, we are essentially gauging whether or not our project has any potential to exceed certain traffic noise thresholds, typically what we refer to as impact criteria for noise-sensitive properties. We frequently look at residential properties as well as other commercial and community resources that typically have some sort of outdoor or potentially indoor noise-sensitive use. And based upon the projected traffic noise levels that we would be looking at for the future, if the proposed project would be constructed, we would identify those areas that are anticipated or projected to be impacted by traffic noise and consider whether or not any sort of traffic noise abatement or mitigation would meet both GDOT noise policy as well as federal noise regulations requirements. Essentially, we look at constructability for many different noise abatement alternatives, as well as cost effectiveness, as well as the ability for us to potentially reduce traffic noise levels according to our policy. Once we have those initial analyses completed, we will know typically which areas we may have abatement considered for. Typically, GDOT considers noise barriers as the main form of noise mitigation. And once we have those areas outlined that meet both department and federal regulation requirements, we will have that included in the noise assessment that is expected to be available to the general public in late 2021. Prior to the, the public hearing open houses that are scheduled. Prior to construction, but after the public hearing open houses, there will be a portion of time where we would ultimately be finalizing the design for the project and ultimately reevaluating any potential design changes during the finalization of the design. Once we've reevaluated everything, based upon the project construction schedule, we will proceed forward with noise vote for any affected communities that we have a noise barrier proposed for. And that noise barrier vote has to be completed prior to proceeding to construction for any such phases or sections of the project. I believe I covered most of that, but if anybody does have any other questions, we definitely encourage you all to ask them in the Q&A function of Zoom, of the Zoom meeting, and we'll be happy to answer those a little bit more specifically or a little bit more directly. Thank you.
Thank you, Miles. I know that was helpful for those that might have missed it during the first session. Also might be helpful for those that have joined recently and weren't here earlier to get a general overview of the right-of-way process. And we have a team member, Edie Byers. Edie, could you just walk us through some of the general overviews of the right-of-way acquisition process and maybe answer any common questions that people typically have?
Sure, Matt, I'd like to. The right-of-way process has several phases, specifically four, and it starts with a pre-acquisition where the right-of-way service team will evaluate what parcels are impacted and what needs to be acquired from each individual parcel that the designers determine can't stay within the footprint of the existing right-of-way. So we might need to go out and purchase, whether it would be a small strip of land or some easements, and they will go out and photograph, contact all the individual property owners one-on-one, let them know they're coming out. And then once they determine how many parcels are impacted, they'll move on to the appraisal process. And the appraisers are licensed, certified, independent appraisers that are on GDOT's certified list. They have to make contact with the individual impacted property owners, meet them on site. that appraisal process sometimes take about 90 days, depending on the difficulty of the appraisal and the impacts to that particular property. And once those reports are turned in, they get reviewed by a review appraiser to determine what the fair market value would be, which is the amount that would be offered in writing to each property owner based on the size of the fee simple or easements or any improvements that might be impacted. And then we have a negotiation period that can go anywhere from 30 days, 120 days. It's really based on the property owner and if they can reach a negotiated settlement quicker, sooner, and what impacts that they have to foresee. If there's a relocation where it's an impact that it hits a structure where someone either lives or a business, it's usually a little bit longer of a process because then you have relocation benefits involved in addition to the purchase of your property. And relocation, you're allotted additional time based on state code of, and the right-of-way agents will help. There's a right-of-way and a relocation agent, usually might be the same person, will help each person one-on-one through that process. You're never left alone. And prior to the relocation, the closing can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days based on what type of liens might be on that particular piece of property. So the closing can go quickly, and sometimes we have closings that will take a little bit longer. All of this stuff, if you haven't visited the virtual right-of-way room, I would highly recommend you go in there and do that, because this document that I'm discussing is in there. You can find a link. It discusses the right-of-way process and the expected days. The approximate days could run anywhere from 8 months. If a relocation is involved, it can go up to 18 months. So that's per parcel. So and then the other document that's in there, you could find a link. It's a brochure. It's called the right-of-way brochure, and it's published by GDOT. It covers a lot of good information on the processes of everything I just discussed, only in greater detail. And I believe there's a link to the right-of-way brochure, and it's entitled, "What Happens If Your Property is Needed for a Transportation Facility." Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Edie. Appreciate that. And that's a good reminder that those documents, along with many others, including the layouts, are on our website as well and will remain there. Let's wait just a moment.
Thank you for those of us who are joining us. We welcome you and thank you for being here. We just want to remind you, rules of the virtual PIOH, please submit your questions using the Zoom Q&A feature. Where you will be in listen-only mode and remain muted throughout the entire, throughout the Q&A session. The raise hand feature will be disabled. We ask that you remember that bandwidth will impact your experience, so be sure to have a strong Wi-Fi or a reliable wire connection. If you have a bad connection, feel free to close the session and rejoin. If your network fails or you have to leave, the event will be recorded and it will be posted on the website by October 8th. Closed captioning is available in Spanish and English languages, and it's available by clicking the gear on your screen. And there's an audio option also provided by dialing the numbers that are provided on the website. And if your question requires further research or a detailed technical response, we will respond within 24 to 48 hours. The response will be added to the session's record. And please send your detailed contact information to the project's email address, which is westinterchange@dot.ga.gov. Our next question, and we will, if you would like, sir, we will send you a link if you send us your contact information. But the next question is, what is the link that Edie just spoke about? What is the link that Edie just spoke about? Or Angela will take the screen and show.
Yeah, we'll give us just a moment and we'll show you the website. And you can write down that address, or as Carlene mentioned as well, just feel free to send us an email, or you can send us an additional question in the Q&A feature with your email address. We can send it to you there. Looks like we got one guy. So getting your email down, Mr. Walker. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. So if you are in our virtual PIOH website, if you follow down to property acquisitions, that is, if you look to the right, it is the fourth area that you can check on. And within that virtual room, you have a lot of information regarding property acquisitions, much of which Edie spoke to. And also within that room, you can download or you can review the property acquisition process, and you can also review the right-of-way brochure. So both of the pieces of information that Edie spoke on regarding right-of-way can be found right there within the virtual rooms on this page.
Maybe read out the address.
Sure, the address for that is 0013918.scoutfeedback.com.
Is there another website maybe that go to? Project one?
And if you follow up on the specific project website, you can always navigate to this site. And the project website is www.dot.ga.gov/I-285 I-20 West. W, not West, W. Again, www.dot.ga.gov/I-285 I-20 W. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
We have another question. Is this the first PIOH? Are there any others planned for the future?
Yes, that's a great question. We will be having another public information open house this Thursday, September 24th. Following that, the project team will use the information we've collected through the PIOHs from the public, along with other input we might be receiving, making adjustments to the project based on that, making adjustments to the project based on refinement of the engineering that's taken place, making any adjustments based on new environmental resources and information we will have learned. And that'll take usually over the course of about a year. And we would be coming back with a public hearing open house. It will feel very similar in format to this if we are still meeting virtually. Otherwise, it'll be in person and will be a typical GDOT public meeting. And that would be scheduled for the latter half of next calendar year. So probably in the last 3 months of 2021, we would have another formal public meeting at that point, public hearing open house. Good question, thank you.
And these are some questions that we had earlier also, but we want to make sure everyone is hearing the same information for those that are just joining us. What is considered a noise impact?
Okay, Miles, if you would take that one.
Thank you. So a noise impact is typically an exceedance of certain traffic noise thresholds It does vary based upon the type of property or resource. Let me go ahead and grab this information right here. But for residential properties, we typically have a noise impact threshold of 67 decibels. It is worth mentioning that Georgia observes the approach of that exceedance threshold of 67 decibels as being within 1 decibel of 67. So we would actually consider any sound levels that are projected from our noise analyses as being over 66 decibels as constituting an impact. And again, that is for residential resources, as well as noise sensitive community resources such as schools, churches, things of that nature. We do, however, consider noise impact potential for commercial resources such as hotels, outdoor areas of restaurants, things of that nature. And for those resources, we typically consider a 72 impact threshold, or if we're approaching that 72 decibel impact threshold, it would be 71 decibels. So when we complete our analyses, we look at both the existing as well as the future projected traffic noise levels once the construction of our project is complete. And if we have sound levels projected for those resources that are above those impact thresholds, then we might have traffic noise impact at those locations. Once we identify those locations as being impacted, we may ultimately have to consider noise abatements, typically in the form of noise barriers, as a form of mitigation to attenuate those noise impacts. So I hope that covers the question. We do have many resources actually on our project webpage. There is an environmental as well as an air and noise impacts section. And if you click on that on the project webpage, there should be a noise brochure as well as a list of frequently asked questions, I believe, or a fact sheet. That should provide a little bit more of a general overview about noise assessments as well as what noise impacts are, and a little bit about the process for considering noise barriers. So thank you, Matt.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Miles. Appreciate that. Okay. Well, we are not noticing any additional questions coming in. The meeting is scheduled to go, as we mentioned earlier, from 4 to 7 today. So we've gone over all the material as far as the video and the presentation, and we do appreciate everybody's participation throughout the evening and afternoon. We will be available until 7, as we had originally advertised and mentioned. In case any additional questions come in, we will be glad to respond to those. If anybody has any additional questions beyond tonight, feel free to come back Thursday night. Feel free to get to them by calling the project hotline, sending an email, or mailing in via snail mail as well. But in the meantime, we just want to thank everybody for your participation tonight. And thank you all for your questions and your comments. And we look forward to moving the project forward and appreciate all of you. Thank you. Okay, well, it's a couple of minutes before 7 o'clock, so just wanted to, again, thank everybody for joining us for the session. We will be back on Thursday, so please be sure to tell your friends, your neighbors, if they were unable to join tonight, to join us on Thursday night. And please send in any comments you may have, share the information with your friends and neighbors. And also, just as a reminder, you can go to the website. It's dot.ga.gov/I-285 I-20W. And again, thanks to everybody for participating. Have a good evening.